Welcome to Mindful Drawing. I'm Robert, and I'll be your guide on this meditation practice that enters a space of mindfulness through the act of drawing. This week we'll develop a little scene. It might have a little bit of perspective to it, but that can come and go as you see fit or as your technique provides. Mostly we're going to meditate on transition, that opening through something, a threshold, let's say. And for our imagination, we can bring to mind a tunnel. A carving in a mountain to let a car pass, the hole in a tree in the redwoods that maybe we've seen before, just an archway in the wall of a building, anything that marks out this moment of passage from one space open to one space more enclosed. We'll take that as our starting point for framing out the page and see where it might go, and a little twist we'll add to it as we'll play a game back and forth between the constructed opening and the natural opening, the meeting of two worlds, the human made and the cave carved, perhaps by water or time. There is a bit of a representational component to this, that it kind of looks like something, but don't be discouraged if it doesn't get there very quickly. It may not even get there by the end, but we'll begin to layer in some of the ways that things approach perception through the act of drawing. And if you find them interesting, you can continue on, develop some of those skills, diminishing lines, perspective, hiding, foreground, middle ground, background, mixed together, whatever it might be that you get interested in while exploring this act of drawing. I'm going to use mostly pen, maybe a little pencil here or there to shape things out while I don't know exactly where they'll go, and see what unfolds on the page. So go ahead and gather your supplies, establish your space, and let's draw together. We'll start with a bit of a tunnel, something cutting through. You could imagine like a tunnel in the mountains or in a wall or something like that. It can be an archway, doorway, something that's a tunnel back into space. And I think we'll put a little twist on it in terms of playing our mind of attention and variety in the drawing, and make half or part of the tunnel human-made and half or part of the tunnel natural, and see where that goes as an idea. Warm-up wise, you might start to just play around with a few shapes that come to mind as you think of a kind of circular opening to a tunnel, something more tall and vertical, catenary opening to a tunnel, maybe even a little bit of a round one at the base somewhere, just for yourself to bring to your attention and thoughts, like what that experience of tunneling through something from our point of view is, a train or a car moving through a mountain perhaps, or just an entrance from a wall to a building. Could even be a square tunnel or rectangular tunnel. And then from each of these, considering one side of it roughly around its center, and start to draw over that the natural carved or roaded version of a tunnel. So maybe it's something that just follows roughly the same path, but a little rougher edge. In the square case, it might just be a bit more straight line, jagged condition coming down to the ground. And thinking over whichever shape might draw you in terms of forming that regular and irregular, shaped and shape condition there. And the last little part of the warm-up, whichever one is interesting you, try to draw them together. So giving the little part that cleaner, honed edge, and then bringing in some other edge. And just thinking of what defines the tunnel as a break in the surface, a little bit of a wall or something at the bottom, a little bit of a naturally moving edge somewhere else that also goes back into space in some way. But that's where we'll start and see where it takes us in terms of thinking through the tunnel. We'll probably jump back and forth a little between pen and pencil if we try to get some perspective in, but it can all just be done by eye. So see what comes to you as we work. The open page, give yourself a moment to maybe let the hands sit either on the edges of your sketchbook, table in front of you, or even right on the paper, just to feel their spatial relationship to the area where you're going to bring your attention for the next 25 minutes or so. Let them rest in a comfortable position. If you move them around a little bit to find that position where they just feel settled and relaxed, palms up or down, giving you a measure and a register between the position of your body. They're sitting or standing at a table or on your lap. The position of your medium, a notebook or page, and your linkage out there that'll guide the tool, guide the instrument's engagement to bring something out of that blank page of the paper. And take a couple of nice, deep, but not overly pressured breaths just to sit with that relaxed state for a moment. And as you feel ready, opening your eyes, wiggling the fingers a bit to have them warmed up. Check in if you need to with any other part of the body, just to move it around, make sure it's set and stable. And then we'll start again with that opening in the surface, the empty page, with no depth or space yet, just a canvas. Somewhere, you're feeling out a little bit first, size, big or small, totally up to you. Position centered somewhere else around the edge. And with the shape in mind, bringing it from the lower corner up and beginning over, whichever way that is for you for a shape. Moving at a nice pace, it lets you form the line or curve just to around half-ish way to the opening. A little farther, a little less. It's all fine. Always draw back over the top. And with that condition established, take a moment to replace the pen or pencil to be ready for the next type of drawing. A breath in, and an exhalation into the transition from carved to existing. Forming two sides of that space, lightly bound now by a curve and a wobble of some kind. And if we want to give a little perspective to this as we start to think about its place in something, perhaps something synthetic or made on the left, something natural or formed on the right, we have a little bit of a 2-point condition, a wall coming in somewhere way out over here, a wall coming in somewhere way out over here, vanishing. So as long as we play with a little bit of angle to lines, it'll look a little perspective, but you can also draw straight to see where it goes. Moving to frame out the edge of the landscape, us occupying a ground, and then transitioning to some form of wall to pass through, starting with the synthetic side, just a little line that heads off towards the edge of the page in a direction. And says here, something stops and opens through. Taking some time with that. Use a pencil, you can form that line a few times, or a pen, just feel it out, get an edge going. And perhaps then on the natural side, taking the curvy edge out in a similar way across the paper, less direct a structure, but roughly following that line of sight. diminishing upwards. And now we have our open territory below and our potential wall or bound territory above. We can take something from this back into the space a little bit to form kind of a tunnel. If this was a doorway, go back up with a harder edge, or perhaps for more ease and openness, we can take the soft edge from where it rises above and branch off and let it ride back into the space. Maybe nicely curving a little bit behind and just hiding whatever could be happening there. We don't know. And taking the time to get this structure set, we begin to see more of that foreground leading back away. Something of a gateway, a change, and then whatever the background might become separate in another plane. And kind of work between all of these to add layers of detail, texture, change. So bringing our attention to this zone inside the opening, but on the mostly natural side, whether you're left or right, top or bottom. And to start to play with the pen or pencil, bringing some definition to that surface. A big empty space, now open for thinking about how stuff might overhang, stuff might sneak behind, bringing some lines up the bottom edge, trying to imagine some things, maybe some little debris or rocks here and there. The edge gets a little rougher. And as we do this, we start to fill a space that suggests a plane or surface in space to give it some definition. You can listen to our body's engagement. And first, as you start to move the pen or pencil, small little marks, bringing texture. Notice the inhalations. The body will do whatever it needs, whatever it feels in the exhalations. But notice each time you inhale, maybe the pen comes to a stop for a moment there. And then picks up, drawing again, a chance to recalibrate. Maybe the hand has its way, it's found the feathers, and you just notice the inhalation occasionally, and the body takes care of the rest as we keep the hand moving. The occasional return to mind with the inhalation. Again, anytime during this, we might take a pause, really notice that full inhalation of the breath, and then use it to begin again out on the page. In that inhalation, as it becomes a more normal thing to hear, to feel, to remind yourself of. And you bring and broaden your senses a little bit. Helps you notice the temperature of the air. Just the rushing sound of moving air through an opening. Letting the eye wander while the mind listens to the inhalation. Opens up and then expresses out during that natural exhalation and pause. Little ticks and marks, texturing the surface up, bringing the corner down, playing and dancing a little bit in that rhythm of inhalation and exhalation, until that space is filled up a little bit and starts to say there's something happening there. I begin to intensify the edge a little bit, go over it a couple of times, just bringing a stronger definition between inside and outside, as the more lines distract from the original mark. We can take this natural territory, the form territory, out from the entrance or the mouth, along its path towards the edge of the page, and move lightly there, feathering, softening the edge. Nothing is so perfectly sharp. There's dirt, debris, fragments, cracks along that path there, kind of following it, maybe kind of every once in a while leading out into space, or working up the side to suggest a bit of figure, perhaps the edge of a rock, the beginning of a valley cut back. Whatever your mind starts to find. Working in the natural way, just occasionally remembering to notice the inhalation. A chance to slow down. And reinvigorate for more dancing movements of the hand that bring a suggestion of texture, a noticing of the edge, taking on more to character. And then the inhalation, guiding our attention, keeping it both present in our body and refreshed for the expression out onto the paper. That edge, the first wiggly line marked, a continuous suggestion or guide. Something happens along here, something meets here. Even if you soften it, loosen it, carry it out and up, carry it back in a way. And the inhalation, hidden in there, hidden in our imagination, can easily, quickly get away from us, bring excitement and fun, but also a tightness, perhaps a restriction to the remembering to breathe. We just want to have that presence of mind to occasionally center here in the drawing, in the task, in the exercise, whatever it may be. Bringing a little texture around edges, forming something in the space of nothing, all the way along the edge until it meets with the carved, honed, synthetic edge, finding that interface. And then inhalation. Notice where you are. Decide to stay or move. Each one that your attention finds, we miss a few, that's okay, re-establishes the motion of the hand, the dancing through space of a mark. Gives the eye a chance perhaps to catch up, to see again what's taking place there. And just lets you play a little while you replenish. It may start to look a bit like a surface or something. It may end up just a texture, but this area, something other than the blank area. Slowly filling out that space. A few more breaths, a few more cycles. We'll switch gears from the natural, moving, dancing synthetic to a more controlled edge of something. As you feel ready, we'll look over to the other side, the sharp edge, and perhaps that's something carved and made, perhaps made from a series of blocks. So if you have a ground edge with a little bit of suggestion of perspective, begin to mark a few moments up the edge, whether you want to give it arches of stone or bricks carved in a shape, something there that resembles a human made material, human carved whole, just dividing the edge in a way that a person might measure and think through something. A few kind of evenly spaced marks. And if this line gives a little bit of diminishing space or perspective, you could lightly trace it out. You can use pencil if you like, just to bring it somewhere off over the page. Think of somewhere horizontal, like a horizon that we can't see in the distance. And bring out a rough guide, seeing known points to kind of see where some shapes might be, but if not, we can just draw and see if we can make it look kind of right. Somewhere in the middle, if this is a wall made of stone or bricks, a line will go out, mostly horizontal. And every line below that will go a little bit more angled towards the bottom line. You can work back and forth between each one. You're going to find that slow, perceptual transition. In the end, all the structure of any perspective system is just to make it look kind of natural. And anything above the mostly horizontal line gradually transitions out and up, giving a little indication of the diminishing space on the page. I'm going to take this a little bit up into the natural somewhere. Eventually it ends wherever it feels right. With that series of straightish lines, series of wiggly lines, the two worlds start to meet around this potential transition or threshold, one bringing its presence stronger to the other, up to you. As we have established a scene, other things you might begin to draw into it is an indication of the honing this edge. A few slightly increasingly spaced vertical lines indicating blocks. A play of giving them character by moving around them, each on their own, each with its own shadows and edges. Perhaps filling in the foreground or leaving it nice and poetically open, whatever you want to play with now that this is established in your few minutes of quiet drawing into the space, the work of constructing the wall is framed by the edge that leads into the cave. And just adding these vertical lines. Few minutes as you draw, add texture, add detail, start to fill in the themes of this world emerging on the paper, noticing each empty region, each line or trajectory folds in something new, the narrative we might construct or hold in our imagination. Some lines or shapes we recognize as patterns to things we've seen before. We begin to see the things that we have in our imagination. Perhaps we bring them out there, we work to try to bring them out there, that practice in the act of drawing and representing each new shape or surface on the page, the potential bounding of space and suggestion of something else that could be there. And texture, play, and dance with the pen or pencil can define that surface, the outline of each block, the gentle tracing of crags, valleys, ridges. Slowly blend and bring together perception and expression. And then we start to notice things that are a little weird here and there, a line, out of direction, the plane, slightly bent. And in that noticing, build up a sensitivity to how we see around us in the world. And over time, with practice, with a few techniques, you might bring that in to any act of drawing and expression, getting more familiar with what feels right, or being more comfortable playing with things that are a little off. Even when we make stuff, most of those right angles have a softer edge, a wiggle, a wobble. Things are done in the time. People change. Maybe there's some more you imagine and see, some light, some shadow, continuation, an edge, a wall. Feel free to keep exploring if you're so inspired or you have the time, but if your hand has done some work, your eyes and mind trying to push it all together into the page and a little world is unfolding within, you can take a step back and recognize and remember again that breath, an inhalation, an exhalation to pause, recollect, a nice deep inhalation, bit of a hold, and then a sigh of an exhalation outwards, reestablishing that first grounding in space after a little journey inward. One more, just to really fill out the space of your body and the space around you. Feel everything settle and relax back into its place from one position of engagement, opening the eyes, opening yourself back to the other acts of engagement of your day. Perhaps as you look at the drawing afterwards or come towards the end of the exercise, you see places that you could engage with it a little more. You see places where things get a little off, get a little funky. There's a lot of variation in my diminishing lines, and a lot of that comes from practice, from how you're positioned with the page, how much structure you provide. Think of this like the opening, a sketch that could become something more with time. Think of this like a suggestion of a scene preparing for its larger story to unfold. And if that becomes an interest to you, any place where you just begin with an idea, this threshold, this opening between the natural world and the synthetic or human made world, what could it become? And follow the story. First, dancing, playing, being present with yourself, being present with the instrument and the act of creating there on the page, letting that guide your imagination until you catch something. And now we can step back. You can put a piece of trace over the top. We can start a new page, construct it more specifically, and begin to add layers and layers into that narrative until who knows what we might discover there. But each drawing is first an act of being present with the ideas you want to explore, then becoming aware of what you're really doing through that presence, and finally doing it again until you find the way through to your creative expression. But it all starts somewhere. A few deep breaths, a few noticings of what a line does or an edge can be, and following it till you find something interesting. Speaking of which, I hope you find these videos interesting. If you do, please give it a thumbs up below. Share it with friends. Bring more people into the mindful drawing circle. Maybe even do it together if you catch these on YouTube later. Usually every Wednesday during the week, I'll have a new episode, a new technique, a new idea, a new meditation through the act of drawing. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day or evening, and draw well. Thank you.